I have never believed in the supernatural. Growing up, I always thought ghost stories existed for one reason only, to frighten the weak and entertain everyone else. I laughed at superstitions. I had no patience for people who saw signs in ordinary things or whispered about forces they couldn't explain. Whenever something strange crossed my path, I found a rational answer for it. Always. I was 10 years old when that stopped working. Back then, my friends and I practically lived on the street. We explored abandoned buildings, crawled through broken fences, and claimed every forgotten corner of the neighborhood as our own. There was one place in particular, an old 3-story house on the edge of the district, condemned for demolition but somehow still standing. Cracked walls, shattered windows, staircases that creaked under every step. We spent nearly an entire day there. By evening, the older kids had settled on the second floor. They were smoking, arguing, laughing too loud. I got tired of their noise, so I decided to walk around on my own one last time before heading home. That was when I went down to the basement. It was cold down there, damp and silent. The only light came through narrow openings near the ceiling, just above street level, enough to see but barely. The basement was divided into small storage rooms by rotting wooden partitions, broken crates, piles of debris, crumbling plaster, door after door, room after room, all of them empty. But at the very end of the corridor, I stopped. One door was different from the rest. It was closed more tightly than the others, and on it hung an old padlock. I don't know why I reached for it instead of going back upstairs. Maybe it was just curiosity. I grabbed the padlock and gave it a pull, and it snapped off in my hand, tearing away a chunk of rotting wood with it. The door swung open slowly, not with a creak, not with resistance, just smoothly, silently, as if it had been waiting for exactly this moment. Behind it was a small, empty room. I almost turned away, but something made me look down. The floor was different here, too clean, too even for a place like this. And in the corner, half hidden in shadow, I saw an iron ring bolted into a wooden board, a hatch, a has. Block 2. What was below? I still can't explain why I didn't walk away right then. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the kind of fearlessness that only children have, the kind that disappears the moment you actually see something you shouldn't. I grabbed the ring and lifted the cover. The hatch opened without a sound. I held it up for maybe 5 or 6 seconds, no longer than that. But those 5 or 6 seconds have never left me. Cold air rose from below. There was a faint, murky glow coming from somewhere deep in the darkness. Not a light exactly, more like an absence of total black. I leaned forward and looked down, and I saw faces. 4 children's faces, 6, maybe 7 years old. They were pressed close together in the darkness, close enough that I couldn't tell where one ended and another began. There wasn't enough light to see their bodies clearly, but their faces, I saw those perfectly. They were looking up at me. Not with surprise, not with fear, not with the wide eyes of children who had been caught somewhere they shouldn't be. They looked at me the way you look at someone who has walked into the wrong room. Calm, still, like they already knew me and had simply been waiting to see how long it would take. One of them was closer than the rest, a boy. His eyes were dark and unblinking, his face was completely still, and in the last half-second, just before my fingers let go of the hatch cover, just before the wood came down, I watched his lips slowly pull apart into a smile. Not a child's smile, something older, something wrong. I dropped the cover and ran. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I don't remember pushing past the others. I only remember being outside, heart slamming in my chest, cold air hitting my face, and not looking back once. The older kids took one look at me and stopped laughing. Nobody went back down to check. That evening I told my father everything. He didn't laugh either. He listened, then walked next door to find the local officer. That night, he and 2 other men went back to the house and searched the basement. I was already asleep when he returned. In the morning, he told me they found nothing. No room, no hatch, no sign that anyone had ever been there. I asked him if it could have been my imagination. He said that the mind can play powerful tricks, especially when you're young and alone in the dark. He told me that fear only wins if you let it. I held on to those words for a long time. Years passed. I grew up. I built a life, a career, a home, a family of my own. I stopped thinking about the basement, stopped thinking about the faces, convinced myself, finally and completely, that it had been nothing more than the fear of a 10-year-old boy in a dark room. And I almost believed it, until one evening, not long ago, I opened the door to my son's bedroom. He was sitting on the bed, looking at me, still, unblinking, with that same quiet, heavy gaze that I had spent 20 years trying to forget. And I recognized him. I recognized him from the hatch,